So today we're starting our final unit. The last 2 weeks you've been learning about the Salem witch trials and how long-held beliefs as well as unexplained phenomena or major events can lead to panic and hysteria. So our project is going to be working off those ideas. And you have this list right here of possible topics that you can choose from, of different hysterias that have happened over time. Also, if you know of one that you would like to explore that isn't on this list, let us know ASAP so we can approve it. Also, these are first come, first serve, so make sure that you pick yours right off so you get the one that you want. For our final project, there are 3 different pieces to it. There's a research paper, there's a creative writing piece, and then there's a presentation. I'll go over the rubrics for these in a couple of minutes. So we've broken down mini lessons based on the different pieces that you need to have for your project, and these will be your day-to-day assignments. Today, your only job is to pick a topic. Next week, we'll go over research as well as writing tips to help you in starting your research and then actually writing your paper. So we will look at that rubric first. So for the research paper, we're going to want you to have a clear thesis of what you are exploring through this paper, as well as have each paragraph only be about one thing and have a clear topic sentence for each paragraph. There's not a certain number of body paragraphs that you need. That will be dependent on your topic and how you break that up. Each paragraph will need to have at least one quote, as well as paraphrased information. And you'll need to have in-text citations for both of those things, which we'll be showing you how to do an in-text citation for quotation and an in-text citation for paraphrase. You will also need a reference sheet at the end of your paper that has all of your references. Your paper should be an APA format, which is what we usually use when we're researching, so it's going to be different than MLA, but again, we'll go over that format. But it consists of having a title page as well as Arial font 11. We're also going to be wanting you to not have very many grammatical or spelling errors. You will need to turn in both a rough draft and a final draft and have a conference with a teacher in between those things. So that's section 1, and that's what we're going to be working on these first couple of weeks. Section 2 is a creative writing piece where you can either write a journal from the perspective of someone experiencing this event or hysteria, or you can write a short story where you follow either a main character and write in first person from their perspective, or follow a group of people using third person limited narration, which is we don't know anything outside what the characters know, but we are generally talking through what those characters are seeing. So we're going to look at that rubric now. If you choose to do the journal, it will consist of 1 to 7 entries, depending how long the entries are and depending on how long the event lasted. As well as it will need to have the date in the upper right-hand corner. You'll want it to be Times New Roman, 12-point font, and it's going to be 2 pages double-spaced. We're also looking that this ties back to what you've learned about your event and that there are limited to no grammatical errors. If you choose to do the short story instead, you're going to, again, follow one person or a group of people. It's going to need to have at least a little bit of dialogue, and it also needs to be 2 pages, Times New Roman, 12-point font, with limited errors and tied back to your research. The last thing that you need to do is a presentation. Now, I know presentations can be overwhelming, but it's going to be on the information that you've gotten through your research and through this project. So with looking at the rubric here, the speech is 2 to 3 minutes, but again, you'll have lots of information to choose from. Either you're going to present it live and try to make eye contact as much as possible with the people you're presenting to, Or if that makes you feel uncomfortable, you can film it ahead of time and just make eye contact with the camera. You can have a note card. In fact, I suggest having a note card so you can quickly glance down at it and go back to talking, just like I'm doing here, but you don't need to. It should cover the main pieces of the event, any people involved, and the time period in which it's involved, as well as the outcome of said event. You might even want to read an excerpt from your creative piece as well and give us an idea of that. I wanted to give you an example. So you guys have been looking at the Salem witch trials, so I'm going to use that as my example. So I would choose the Salem witch trials as my topic, and I would research it. And then when I go to write my paper, I'm going to start my first paragraph by explaining the situation. So I'm going to give all the background right off the bat, so we have the information ahead of time. And then I'm going to end that first paragraph with my thesis. So it would be something like this. Many speculate as to the cause of the young girl's affliction, but the two most likely are a stress response from religious guilt, or young girls and women trying to find a voice and gain power in a patriarchal society. So that's my thesis, meaning that my research should back that up. And when we go through this process, you're going to want to play with coming up with your thesis while you're researching so you find the right evidence. I would then move directly into my first paragraph, and I'm going to start with my topic sentence, which will tie back to my thesis. So I say, due to growing up in a very strict moral society, the girls sneaking to listen to Tituba's Barbados tales and watching her magic tricks could have been overwhelmed with an intense guilt that manifested physically. So I'm tying directly back to my thesis where I said that that was one of the causes. Now I'm going to talk about that cause in this paragraph. And then because I only have two things, I'm only going to have one more body paragraph, which will start with Salem, Massachusetts was a town governed by its religious beliefs, which included a patriarchal hierarchy that may have led women to feeling so oppressed that it pushed them to their breaking point, thus leading to a woman-centric hysteria. Now, both of those paragraphs I would want to put in quotes, I would want to bring in paraphrase, but I'm going to tie everything back to what my central argument is. And then I'll put in my conclusion, which will summarize my main points and give any takeaways. So what should we learn from this situation? What's happening here? Now, you might have more paragraphs if you're exploring different things, and those paragraphs would tend to be shorter. So if you're talking about less things, you're going to need to talk more in depth. If you're talking about more things, it can be less depth per paragraph. So the journal, if I was to do a journal over the crucible, I would probably write from the perspective of one of the people who's been accused, as if I was writing it in jail and documenting my time there. But if I was to write a short story, I would probably take on the persona of the group of girls who are sneaking out to hear these stories and then are just kind of feeling guilty about it, but then become trapped in this lie that they've created about the witches and don't really know how to get out of it. So that's the project. I know that it seems like a lot, but we are going to break it down into those little steps, and you have the rest of school to get it done. So if you stick with us as we get through this, we're getting very close to the end of school and you'll be all set. So let me know if you have any questions, or let Mrs. Magruder know if you have any questions, and we can help you out.